r/AskReddit. People who have been shot, what are some things that movies don't portray correctly? That you can actually take a few more shots than in the movies. Sometimes even not notice that you have been shot. You can watch online of police camera shootout and see officers shoot several bullets into someone, and yet they are still able to move. Years ago I knew a guy who had been a burglar. The police were tipped off that he and his buddy were in a place and they came in and shot him 32 times. They stood over him and reloaded. Amazingly he lived, although he was in the hospital for over 2 years. And he would lift up his shirt and show you all the bullet holes. Was shot from about 1.5 yards away by a 12 gauge loaded with buckshot. Was walking away from the attacker, turned slightly sideways and the shot hit my left hip/glute area. Edit. Was walking to my car to get a document I had left in there overnight. Had to pass his duplex door to get to the parking area. Our doors were only a few yards apart, and he ambushed me wearing a mask/all black/gloves with a saw-off. I didn't have time to react cause he literally popped into view with the gun aiming at me before I even knew what was happening. Felt like someone roundhouse kicked the shit out of my leg and I slipped underneath myself onto the grass pretty hard. Knew it was over for me at that point cause I could see him still walking towards me. Then my girlfriend came busting out of the door screaming at him, and he ran away. Don't live next to meth heads. Ever. Psycho cunt thought I was porking his 400-pound wife. It felt like what other redditors describe. Just a really dull ache at first, but it transformed into what felt like a never-ending leg cramp for a few months, until I could move around and stretch it out. The nerve spasms and nerve pain feel like someone stabbing my leg/foot every now and again. The worst ones are where my entire leg seizes up, and it feels like someone smashing my foot with a sledgehammer. The sciatic nerve was completely destroyed in that part of my leg all the way down to my foot, so my foot's paralyzed now. Not me but my dad was shot in the leg while running through a park by some psycho who wanted to test his new rifle on a moving target. He thought he was shot by a BB gun and kept running. He only realized it was a gunshot when he felt blood trickling down his leg. Hey, quick question. What the fuck? In my case, I was unaware I had been shot. I had assumed that it would be an immediate and intense pain based on movies. Realistically, I thought I had someone else's blood on me. Then I thought I had ripped my uniform. Then I thought how did I get this cut that seems to be bleeding profusely? Then I finally, after a second, said oh fuck, I've been shot. And it hurt like a son of a bitch during the recovery. But I wasn't thrown on my ass. I didn't sit there clutching my wound or any of the war movie tropes. Honestly, I felt woozy, but chalked it up to adrenaline at the time. Same with my husband. He didn't realize he had been hit and couldn't figure out why he couldn't use his arm to get to his holster, to get to his weapon. His elbow was shattered. He had to use his left hand to pull it out. He previously thought non-dominant hand training at the range was kind of a waste, but it ended up saving his life. He also got hit in the back, but didn't know that either. Another thing people don't realize is how much adrenaline kicks in. I've got photos of my husband at the scene walking around covered in blood before EMS arrived and convinced him he needed to lay the fuck down right now. He really thought he was okay and tried to argue with them. For me, it felt like getting hit with a baseball bat, then maddening numbness, like when a limb falls asleep and it's all pins and needles. No pain until later, but it sure as fuck set in. Lemme tell ya. I too caught lemme tell ya due to a laceration. I cut my hand wide open using a power tool. Honestly, no pain at all, just pure liquid adrenaline. My wife drive me to the 10 minutes away. The whole time I'm thinking, I know I'm in shock, but lemme tell ya's gonna kick in soon. I need to beat it to the painkillers. Surgeon told me he could not rewire me for at least a couple of hours due to a booked or, so he shot me up with something while we waited. So lucky for me, despite a 6-hour wait time, lemme tell ya never happened. Next day was sore, but for all that happened, pain-wise I was one lucky bastard. Didn't get shot, but I did have a sword stab me all the way through to the bone. It's amazing how your body registers a pain, but doesn't really understand it until you actually see the wound. Adrenaline is magical. Even a minor wound disables you way more than you expect. You'd be hard pressed to keep fighting. The moment I saw blood gushing, my body just instinctually collapsed into a ball before it even felt the pain. Recover takes forever. Movies would be a lot less interesting if the protagonist had to wait nearly a month before having something resembling a decent range of motion with the injured limb. Edit. For those asking how I got stabbed with a sword, I own a few. I'm an actor and my roommate was getting into stage combat. He was fooling around with some, and at one point, when I wasn't looking, grabbed a different blade. The edges were dull, but he didn't realize the tip was still sharp. Stabbing weapon, not slicing. He came at me. I noticed the blade he had, parried once, but before I could stop him, took the tip right into my arm. Basically a really stupid, avoidable accident. I was shot through the neck with a .22. I don't really recall anything of the actual shooting. The aftermath, however, was horrendous. Permanent nerve damage, months in the hospital, followed by 2 years of occupational and physical therapy. Edit to answer some questions. The bullet hit my C5 vertebrae, causing permanent nerve damage in my right arm, wrist, and hand, as well as muscle atrophy in that arm. I was put on a ventilator because a lung collapsed and given an emergency tracheotomy. I had 2 bolts screwed into the back of my skull with weights hanging from them to stabilize my spine. I wore a Minerva brace for over a year. I have not been shot, only blown up and shot at. Regardless, being shot is not an instant kill or knockdown. Movies always make it seem instant. You get shot and are down for the count and removed from the fight. You can be shot several times in places that will eventually kill you, but can stick it out and fight for an extended period of time. When I was in Afghanistan, I saw an enemy fighter take 2 to 3 rounds from an M240, fall behind a wall. He was down maybe 20 seconds before he stood back up, continued shooting and ran off. I'm positive he died shortly later, but anything short of a heart or headshot may or may not drop an attacker instantly. This plays begin to self-defense situations or other life-threatening altercations. Car crashes. If you find yourself in an active shooter situation and are fighting and get shot, don't stop fighting. You're still in the fight, and fastest way to get help is the end the threat and make egress. This is especially true for cops. Stay in the fight. You're hurt but you're not dead, so dig deep and fight. The human body is incredible and tons of situations require willpower to make your body do absurd stuff. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I got shot in the palm of my hand. When a robber tried to shoot me in the face, I put my hand up. You don't just wrap a rag around it and keep using it like in the movies. It causes major nerve damage and breaks bones. How did it heal? Did the bullet go all the way through? Luckily for me, the robber was attempting to fire the old crimped end birdshot rounds through a semi-auto handgun, and it jammed up as not to get off another round. The birdshot round had over 25 pellets, about half the size of a BB, and in 1985 they figured they would cause more damage chasing the pellets around to pull them out than just to leave them, so that they did. Took about 5 years to get the feeling back in my hand, but the pellets still travel around in my hand and sometimes wind in right next to a joint, which isn't too bad. Unless it's real cold, then it hurts like a bitch. Shot myself in the upper thigh with a .22 mag. It felt like someone punched me, but didn't actually hurt until I was at the ER and they started rinsing out the wound with disinfectant that stung like hell. The bullet fragmented in my leg, but it wasn't near anything serious, so the doc said trying to get all the fragments out would do more harm than good. Unfortunately, it pulled some fibers from my clothes along with it, so it ended up getting infected. I was on antibiotics for a few weeks and it cleared up. The wound didn't close up for a while and I could feel one of the larger fragments working its way to the surface. It itched like crazy. One night I couldn't sleep because of it, so I went into the bathroom to look at it. When I did, I could see a tiny glint of metal sticking out of the entry wound. I was ready to finally get some relief. The only thing I had was my multi-tool and some tweezers, so I dug around with the tweezers until I could get a grip on the fragment with my pliers. The fragment was oddly shaped, so I had to twist it around until it would squeeze through the hole. Finally it popped free, and it felt amazing. Like popping a giant zit and cracking your knuckles all at the same time. I slept much better after that, and the wound finally healed. Still have some fragments left in, but they aren't as noticeably anymore. Edit. Thanks for the silver. It doesn't knock you back. It just hurts. Tarantino would disagree. Django shootout scene by Miss Laura.